Hey guys, I hope you're having a good afternoon. Before I get into this video, just some announcements. I spilled some water on my keyboard last night, and so as a result, I need to have a new keyboard shipped out to my residence. So the gematria will be suspended for about roughly a week or so. So give it next week. We'll get back to the open broadcast software and we'll break down the NBA. And I'll just be sure to keep notes of everything that's happening and just do everything through the live stream until I get a replacement keyboard. That's number one. Number two, Donald Trump is a illegitimate president. Nobody wanted Donald Trump, and he had 2 million fewer votes than he received in 2020, and that is with increased voter turnout. So Donald Trump is, according to the data, an illegitimate president. In 2016, the people wanted Bernard Sanders to be president. He would have served for 8 years. He would have defeated Trump back in 2016. So Donald Trump has never been a legitimate president ever in our country. This is why he lost in 2020. And that's just terrible when you can't even improve your vote total from 2020, even as population increases and there are more eligible voters now than in 2020. So this really tells us how terrible and how deeply disliked and loathed that Donald Trump is. The 50% of the total vote doesn't tell the complete picture because non-voters decided the election. How do we know this? Voter turnout increased as people are encouraged to register to vote. That's number one. Number two, Joe Biden had 81 million votes in 2020. So far, as there are a few more votes to be counted, but you can call the race, but not every vote has been tallied. But right now, Harris received 67 million votes. So the Democrats lost 14 million votes from 2020, but it still doesn't result in a net increase in votes to Donald Trump compared to his 2020 total of 74 million. Right now, he's at over 72 million. So, depending on how many votes there are left to be counted, he is going to receive roughly the same amount of votes that he received in 2020. So, by conclusion, you could tell that people didn't vote in the general election. He just didn't get elected by the people. The people hated both candidates. Kamala was installed from the get-go. She wasn't actually voted in to be the nominee. Donald Trump is and has always been an illegitimate president. Now, low voter turnout was why he won in 2016 when he won Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania by the slimmest of slimmest margins. So I think he won all three states by 100,000 or 70,000. So pretty much he won all three states by the amount of people that are packed into capacity at the Big House, Michigan's football stadium. So it was the thinnest of margins as a result of people not voting in 2016 when they would have voted for Bernie, but they decided to stay home. They didn't vote for Trump. They sat home in 2016. In 2024, the same is true. They voted in the other elections in the state and their governor's races and their Senate races, but they chose to leave the general election blank. So instead of voting for Trump or Harris, they left the dot blank. They said, I wasn't going to vote for Harris again, and I wasn't going to vote for Donald Trump, but I was going to vote in my state races. So Donald Trump is an illegitimate president. Walking around the area today, I saw zero Donald Trump hats, zero Donald Trump shirts, nothing. He's an illegitimate president, and this is part of a bigger problem that we see in our rigged oligarchic system. Is that the people don't pick the president, the elites do. Republicans don't have to rig their primaries because everybody who runs on the Republican side is a corporate stooge by definition. So what are we talking about? They're for gutting all environmental and financial regulations, benefiting big oil, benefiting the financial firms. They don't want a minimum wage increase. If they had their way, if the libertarian John Birchers had their way, they would have no minimum wage. They're not for the social safety net. Republicans want to get rid of every social safety net program that has benefited Americans for over 90 years, dating back to the New Deal. Bernie Sanders is the complete opposite of that. Bernie Sanders is a real outsider. So, of course, they rigged it against him because corporate Democrats take the insurance industry money. They take, well, Clinton's did take some private prison money, and they take pharmaceutical money as well. So both parties are controlled by the donors, and this is how you get the sorry state of affairs that we have today. This is part of a bigger problem. Over 70% of the country is dissatisfied with the direction that the country is going. You think after assassination, Donald Trump would get more than 74 million votes? That didn't even happen. People just decided not to vote in this sorry-ass election. Donald Trump is a sorry-ass candidate. He's a sorry-ass president-elect. Nobody wanted him. The system is rigged. People have given up on the system. It's rigged. You don't have to be a crybaby like the loser Republicans in 2020 and start crying that the votes got rigged. That wasn't what happened. They didn't rig the vote. The votes were never rigged. People were sick and tired of Donald Trump in 2020. People felt hopeless with inflation that they decided to leave the dot blank. That is what won this election, was people giving up on the entire system and leaving the pointed dot blank. This is how you can reach this conclusion. This is why you cannot believe the polls. They may tell who you prefer between the two candidates, but you're not going to actually pencil in either Trump or Harris, were they? You may have a preference, but if you have a preference, it doesn't mean you're going to vote for either Trump or Harris. That's what happened. Non-voters won this election. Donald Trump didn't even gain any additional support. People are sick and tired of Trump. That still holds true. People decided not to out an authoritarian demagogue. They gave up. They're apathetic. And as Ben Franklin said, you can have a democracy or you can have a democratic constitutional republic as long as you can keep it. And by leaving the dot blank and allowing a fascist authoritarian strawman to gain power, we risk having potentially the last election. But I'm not really worried about that because Donald Trump will probably die in office. Who are we kidding? He'll probably die in office. The odds are pretty good of that happening with his current stature compared to Biden's, right? Obesity and a heart attack is very real when you reach that when you reach the big 80. Certainly 300 pounds is not a very healthy weight. I'm telling you, this is what won the election. Non-voters. Non-voters decided the election. Trump didn't win any votes. The Democrats lost the votes. But people are going to get the government that they let happen. They're going to get Project 2025. They are going to get a real libertarian government that is going to look to dismantle every piece of legislation that has benefited working people for 90 years, dating back to roughly 1932, 1933. This is exactly what we risk with Republican control of the House, in the Senate, in the presidency for the next 2 years from 2025 to 2027. Maybe in the midterms, the Democrats will take back the House. Depending on who's up for election, who's defending their seats, potentially the Senate. But for the foreseeable future, it's up for the Democrats to win one of the two chambers of Congress to prevent a real libertarian ploy to give billionaires even more tax breaks and cut every single piece of legislation that has benefited working people. So non-voters, they are going to have a direct, profound consequence of this government in the foreseeable future. Billionaire tax cuts will be extended from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017 because, we created the act so we can invest and create jobs. It's not what happened. We were close to full employment at that time. They were never, ever going to invest back into the economy. But one thing they were going to do was they were going to buy back their shares, buy back their shares and make their billionaire donors richer. When the price for an outstanding share goes up, when the supply of outstanding shares decreases, when you buy back your own share. But I'm telling you, Donald Trump is not a legitimate president. And he'll just end up being like Kamala Harris. Donald Trump is not going to solve any of the nation's problems. He didn't do so for 4 years, from 2016 to 2020. Why should we expect any different? The majority of people know this. This is why they didn't vote in the general election. But people are not patient. They want instant change. The Build Back Better bill, that's just not how it works. So a factory job, it's here in the morning. No, it takes negotiation. It takes a couple of years for these jobs to come in, for the facilities to be ready. These kind of things take a few years until they do have an impact on the economy. So people don't understand what fosters the future economic growth, but because the Republicans are in power, they're going to get rid of all that stuff. So you can forget about it. Biden meant well. He was the most accomplished president legislatively ever since FDR. Biden did a great job, but people are just ignorant and they have no idea what he actually did. The average voter is ignorant and uninformed. They're not stupid because they didn't vote for Trump. His same group of fringe lunatics still voted for him. 74 million in 2020. He's at 72 million in 2024. So people didn't vote for Trump this time around. People just didn't vote for Biden, and this decision had a direct consequence in putting a disastrous, insurrectionist, pandemic-ignoring president in power. He lost 2 million votes, but Harris lost 14 million from Biden's 81 million in 2020. Illegitimate government, broken government, illegitimate president. This is what the oligarchy wants. They want to make people apathetic, to give up, to stop fighting. When we stop fighting, we don't win. This is what the oligarchy wants. When you rig the election against Bernie Sanders, you turn people against the system. But you're in for a surprise if you think the Republican Party has any solution to this inflation right now. Inflation has already gone down, and for the record, if Trump won in 2020, people just would have blamed Trump for the current inflation if he did win in 2020. So what does that say about how things really work? Does the president impact how the prices are right now? No. Wrong target. People should be angry at these greedy corporations. They're angry at the wrong people. These politicians are just paid to take the heat for the donors and for these greedy companies like Kroger that in their emails, in their own emails, they admit they are price gouging on common items more than they need to. This would have happened regardless if Trump won or lost in 2020. So we still would have the same inflation today, even if Donald Trump won in 2020. Biden was just a scapegoat for inflation. Inflation is, the culprit of inflation is corporate greed. Nothing is going to change. They just care about being elected. This is all the Republican Party cares about. Kamala did say she was going to go after price gouging. Donald Trump said he was going to go after price gouging. He didn't say he was going to go after price gouging because he works for the donors. Broken government, what a joke. The same exact government from 2017 to 2019 is here. Nothing of benefit to the average worker. If you're complaining about inflation, tariffs on foreign goods, goods from China to your Walmart, that's just going to make things more expensive. I'd be surprised if they try the tariffs, but if they do, they're only going to make things more expensive. How does that help inflation? Ironically, how does that help inflation? His main economic footprint was to raise tariffs, which makes all goods across the economy more expensive in aggregate. What the hell are people doing? It's useless. It's completely useless. Who the Lakers play? Memphis? I won't be surprised to see them 4-4 because, again, he's number 44, right? Jerry West. In bubbles, Comanche 44, and champions is 44, the repeats 44. So I won't be surprised to see them lose and see them beat Memphis during the in-season tournament. But if they lose today, they're beating Philly on Friday. It'll be 5-4 like Kobe Bean. I like this Dalton kid. He's great. He was a great first-round draft pick. He's no Jalen Chapano. I know it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. Just be healthy when the playoffs are ready to roll. Beat every team. Beat the Clippers. Beat the loser Phoenix Suns. Check. Beat the Warriors. Check. Beat the Mavs. Check. Beat the Celtics. Check. Beat the Cavs. Check. Beat the Knicks. Check. Beat every team in the league, and just be healthy when the playoffs are ready to roll it. And the Nuggets are war, so beat the Nuggets too. So yeah, I'm excited for league basketball, and I am excited for what's to come. Is America ready for a woman president? Do they just need someone who's not Hillary Clinton or the black Hillary Clinton? That Trump was not elected. Alan Lichtman's model, I think his only thing that was an issue just maybe the incumbency and having no primary and the short-term economy. It's not just, there's no recession, there's a recession. His model, he didn't account for inflation. So, Lichtman made a couple of errors in his model. His model is perfect, but it's just the interpretation of the model, which is why Alan Lichtman happened. Well, he's a Democrat too, so there could be a little bit of propensity for bias, but it's a great model. But I think you underestimated the incumbency and the short-term economy keys. You just got to include inflation, deflation, and if there's recession, no recession. So jobs weren't lost and GDP didn't go down, but there's still inflationary pricing pressures. So anyway, I will do that video breaking down the non-voters deciding the 2020 election. Demographic groups are not really that meaningful. It is about the total aggregate voters across the country. And certainly from a swing state by swing state basis, when you factor in non-voters, I will be sure to include in my charts how many votes Trump gained in all the swing states, how many votes Biden Harris lost in the swing states. But the analysis is just going to show that Trump didn't gain any additional votes. It's the same exact breakdown when you compare 2012 to 2016, the same exact one. So Donald Trump is an illegitimate president. The popular vote does not tell the full picture. When you factor in votes lost from the prior election, non-voters have made the difference in this election. Donald Trump is a disaster, and most of America knows it. People are becoming apathetic and giving up on the system entirely. People have just given up. But you see, got to get rid of corporate money. The Green New Deal takes time. I was actually seeing a pretty left-wing presidency, but people are mad at Biden that they're mad at Joe Manchin that they didn't pass the minimum wage increase. They need to raise it to $20. This is what people mean. Raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour across the economy. Have more money in their wallets. This was true. People made more as production went up all the way up until 1980. And then we've been in decline ever since 1980. The Trump economy sucked. The Biden economy is woeful. It's no different than the 2% GDP during the Obama years, because the jobs are lost and they have not been replaced throughout the economy. We're talking about NAFTA. So what you're seeing is a result of decades of corporatism that, no coincidence, started with Republicans in the 1980s who decided to give billionaires a huge tax windfall. So this is a sorry state of affairs in America. And I feel the sheep out there that are happy that Trump won. I mean, man, there is no helping these people. These guys are just sheep. They don't know how to think for themselves. Pathetic. I don't think people knew enough about Biden. People are just not informed about Biden's presidency. If you're mad at Biden, you got to be mad at the not raising the minimum wage. Yeah, so we have a huge deficit crunch under President Trump, so the debt's going to skyrocket. Remember, he added $8 trillion to the debt in 4 years. How many throughout 8 years? The female president in 2028 is going to inherit a huge deficit crunch. Trump is going to easily lose in 2028. People had enough of Trump. No new voters voted for Trump. This guy's already cooked. If there's any truth to the Simpsons prophecy, then if the Simpsons prophecy is true, then a woman president will be elected on the Democratic side. But it all depends if Ivanka chooses to run as a Democrat or as a Republican. Now, she's a smart woman. She's not a moron like her dad. And she was a liberal before her dad got elected. And her husband Kushner's a liberal too. So there is a chance that Ivanka Trump can run as a Democrat to reverse the disastrous legacy of her father. Wow. I never thought I'd be voting for a Trump. I might never even considered the prophecy that Ivanka may run as a Democrat in 2028. I don't think she'll be involved in her father's presidency. If she's not part of the cabinet of Donald Trump, she is considering to run as a Democrat. I won't be surprised if she does. If the economy tanks, which it will, because Donald Trump bankrupted America, he bankrupted his companies, he had 6 bankruptcies, so why should we expect anything different when he bankrupted America during COVID? You're going to have a crash under Donald Trump, and we're going to have a female president in 2028. That's the Simpsons prophecy in full action.